So today is the last day of the complete tutorial for the Impasto brush pack. On the first day, we did the base painting, and for the second tutorial, we worked on the colors and the details. Today, we will be working with the Impasto brushes. And now I'm going to recap like everything about all the Impasto brushes. The Impasto brushes in my brush pack are all called tick paint. So dabbers are tick paint, these are all tick paint. Rigs are also tick paint, so tick paint, tick paint, tick paint. And then there are 3D smudge, 3D smudge, 3D smudge. So there are a total of 3 3D smudge, 4 Impasto brushes, and everything else at the bottom are all regular brushes. There are some alphabets at the end of the brush name, like D, then L, then S. So these are the usage definition. So let's say you want to paint with this dabber here. If you just pick the brush, adjust the size, and you just stamp it, you get something, wow, miraculously good, okay? Most likely you would not get something like this. But anyway, you need like a shadow. Then you click the second swatch for the highlight. So you have 2 colors. If it's in D, you pick the dark color. It will be highlighted here. Then when you paint with it, you get something like this. If you pick the light color and you paint, it's inverted and it's wrong, okay? So if it's an L brush, let's say this brush, you would want to pick the white color. Make sure that it's showing up here. Whatever is showing up in this circle means it's selected. Okay, so now I have white selected, and when I stamp, I get a correct stamp. Now, when you paint with dabbers, in a stroke, you get something like this. But for the rest of the thick paint, when you paint with it, you actually get a stroke, a 3D stroke, okay? If there's an S at the end of the brush name, it means that it has shadows. So this is D and S. I have to paint with the D, okay? So there's a shadow at the bottom, okay? So it looks extra 3D. So now let's talk about matching colors. So let's say I want to have a blue stamp with this brush. So the first thing to do is to pick the color, and then for the second swatch, tap on it, tap the same swatch in the history. You will have 2 exact same swatch, and now you need to get a shadow color. To get a shadow color, go diagonally down towards the black. So now try and stamp with it to check. Now you can see that the contrast is very low. The further you go, the contrast is gonna get higher. Okay, so now we have various stamps of various contrasts. What we want to do is to maintain the color identity. So which one of these stamps actually maintain this color identity? So I can tell it's this one. The contrast is neither too low, this is too low, or too dark. Like this is too dark, it's starting to lose the color identity. So let's say you like this one, but you want to maintain the color identity. So you pick the color and you drop it to here, the center part. So now we have something like this, which is the same color, but let me show you that it's the same color. It's the same color. This is not the same color. But we can see that this still maintains the color identity better. So the philosophy of this whole discussion is that you need to kind of manage the contrast between the shadow color and the main color, okay? So if it's me, I would paint with these. So there's also a reason why I have D and L brushes in my brush pack. So let's say I have this blue stroke now and I want to change to purple. When I change the color, I have to change both colors. The shadow and the main color has to be changed. It means that is a double step. So let me show you what it means. I have to go here, pick purple, and then tap here, pick purple. Then once it's all done, I have to tap back here because I need to pick the shadow. Okay. Then I paint. So if I work like this every time, it's gonna lag the workflow because it's so slow. Okay. But if I use the L brushes, let's say I have my blue, it was like this. I paint with this, and then now I want to change. I can just swap this to purple and see if it works. So see, I just changed color, but it was so quick. And why is that? The reason is because I'm changing within the range of this color. So meaning, the shadow is here, right? I can essentially go blue like this, or go green like this, and it will still work, or go like that. You see, all four works because they are all sharing the same shadow color. But if I'm using a D brush, I can't do that quickly enough because I keep having to change back to D every time I change the two colors. So this is why I have the L option, so that you can quickly change colors, and you should always use L brushes if you're looking to do something really quick. But if you want quality, D brushes are the way to go because they are modeled better than the L brushes. So now we have this base painting, right? And we want to start at an impasto. The first step is always to do all the quick ones first. So there's a few workflows you can use. The first one is called the overlay workflow. So for the overlay workflow, it's really simple. You just pick black and white, and then you use any brush. Okay, let's say you're using this brush. You can even swap to another one to paint. Okay, all you have to do is to change this layer to overlay. All the impasto effects has to be above the base painting, yeah? Okay, so once you change this, you can see I'm already adding texture this way. So if I turn on the base painting, so I'm just going to try and do some. Okay, so let's say I want to add like this, okay? So what's wrong with this? Is the contrast is too high, the whites is too bright, the black is too black, okay? If I just make this back into normal mode, it looks like this. So we know that the black is being controlled by this black color and the white is being controlled by this. So what we can do is we reduce the contrast by picking a lighter shadow and a darker highlight. So you can see that there is no harsh blacks anymore, but the whites is still very bright. So I can bring down the white even more. Now this is quite subtle already, and you can actually just use this. Once you have the two color swatches set up, you can now freely use any brush. I can just swap to this brush, but make sure if it's a D brush, this is a D brush, you're painting with the dark color. And if it's an L brush, you are painting with the brighter color. And then sometimes if you use, let's say this brush, it's too bright, you have to kind of adjust a little bit, okay? Like adjust the intensity a little bit to make sure it matches whatever you want to paint, because in different areas it's gonna look different as well. Yeah. So what you want to do is use this technique, go over the entire painting and give it a texture first. I usually use Tricky Thick Paint L for this workflow, and I would just start adding textures quickly. You can literally like use any brush, but I like to use this Tricky brush because it gives like brush marks. I can add it to the entire painting if I want. Another good brush to use is the Dry Thick Paint. You can add like 3D dry brushing with this brush. Okay, so this is a good way to introduce like texture in areas where you want them. So once you're done, you're gonna have something like this, and what you need to do is to use the eraser, load the fat spray brush in, and erase the texture to make them a little bit more subtle in certain areas. But this would actually give a good base for your other impasto stems to sit on already. So that's the overlay technique. So right now, we're gonna do some planning. So make a new layer on top, grab your sketch brush, and then give it a good color that is different from everything else. And then now, you just need to mark the areas where you want really beautiful impasto. So let's say I want one here, here, here. Yep, and this one, of course, this is like the highlight of the piece. So just give a good marking for your intention and what you want to do. And then once you're done, you're gonna have like a map. So we just have to like work methodically, one area at a time to fill them up. Okay, now let's talk about stamp manipulation and strokes manipulation. So this is a stamp and this is a stroke. So there's a few ways you can manipulate them. The first way is to use the free transform tool and distort and then just match the shape a little bit. You can also use warp to change the shape, and if you need to, you can use advanced mesh in order to have better tweaking whenever you couldn't tweak properly. So usually you would do your warping first before proceeding to the next step. The next step is to use 3D smudge. So there are 3 3D smudge. The basic pool 3D smudge stretches anything indefinitely. Like you can go like forever and ever and ever and it will still work. And it ends sharply. So if you need very long strokes, you can use that one. This soft pull one can go indefinitely as well, but it ends with a flow. You'll be mostly using this because this is the easiest you can use. And you can 3D smudge stems and strokes as well. So for strokes, you can use it to carve, like you smudge from outside in to carve. Or you can just drag it and then keep on sculpting until you get the exact shape that you want. The last smudge goes shortly and it fades out to a dry brush. So it goes like that and it's very natural. Alternatively, you can also use these normal smudges. This one also goes to a dry smudge, but it doesn't extend. So you can use these 3D smudge to smudge it to get the shape that you want whenever you are manipulating 3D stems. Usually I would tell everyone that after the overlay workflow is done, that to get their liners and to put in all the lines first, but we are not going to do that today because the lines has to sit on top of everything else in the landscape painting. So we are going to work on stems immediately and strokes as well. So in order to work with stems and strokes, the fastest way is to build a library first. So just take your time, clear your canvas and create a layer. Use back the grays that you were using for the overlay technique. That would be a great choice. And then take a look at all the brushes and just stamp whatever you want to use. Create a new layer for every single stamp and just find out what brushes you want to use first. Make sure they're in the bigger size when you stamp. New layer again. So I'm just quickly building like a library here in my project. So let's say you have your library already and they are all in separate layers like this, okay? So these will be your library. So just turn them off, turn on your base painting, and now turn on the planning. Because this painting is like so big, it can be very overwhelming. Like the moment you zoom, you know that like once this is done, there's like a lot more. So a good way to manage your expectations is to use drawing guide and then set it to a grid size that's big. So now I have a grid of 8. So I can just work like one grid at a time and I won't overwhelm myself. So I'm just gonna work on this one first. So I know that I want to use this stem. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, turn it on and bring it to where I am. And then I can just adjust accordingly. Flip it. Once it's in place, I turn it off and then I pick the color below it and I'm just going to drop it in. There we go. Then I can adjust it accordingly. So now we have one stamp already And if I want to repeatedly use this stamp, I can just duplicate it like this, especially in the same area, and then drop the color in and then smudge to make sure that they don't all look like exactly the same. So like there's some difference here now. So I will continue building the stamps this way, and I can also alternatively choose to paint. So let's say I want this same treatment over here, but I don't want to use the same stamp anymore. So I can actually just pick these two colors, get back the same brush, and paint in the details. So let me just do some painting, and then I would just smudge to get the shape correct first. Once the shape is correct, I turn it off and I just grab the color below it and drop it in. Then I smudge it again to make sure that it's not all similar and that I don't cover like textures that I still want to be visible. Okay, so from far it's gonna look like that. I can of course just choose to erase some of them if they are too much. I can continue duplicating the layers if I want to use the same brush. Turn it off, pick the color below and drop it in. Then smudge to complete the artwork. Well, the reason why you can actually use same brushes in the same area is because you can 3D smudge them to look different. So now you have a couple of strokes already. Once you have a couple of strokes, make sure that these layers stay separate from your library. I usually put them above my base painting, and once you're done with like a section, you merge them. Yeah. So keep your layers minimum this way by merging layers all the time. So a good idea before you get started with all your stems and really dial in on like every single one of them is to give the whole painting an overall feel first. And the way to quickly do that is to use this stem, the round one. So make like a bunch of copies. I'm just going to move them into place. I'm going to move them here, one, and then this one here, just the size. And then I want this one here. Notice that this is flowing this direction. You will want to match that with the direction of your brush strokes. So these areas are all flowing in that direction. So I'm just going to match it like this. And this one got to be smaller as well. And then I want one in the leg. So one by one. So this one first. So this one is pretty easy. Just pick the blue, drop it in. Use the smudge tool and then just blend out the rest. So you can just easily add like subtle impasto this way. And then look, you have such a nice patch already. You can just lower the opacity if it's too much. The second one is here. This one, I want it to be slightly like wavy. So the good thing is you can keep sculpting until you get something you like. So once you have something you like, you can just zoom out to check. Then maybe this one I want to lower the opacity as well. Okay. Then I merge down to keep my layers neat. Let's do this one. Pick the color, drop it in. Sometimes the color turns out to be wrong, so you can drop it in twice. Okay. Reduce the opacity to match. Can we merge down? Okay, so for this spot, you can see that it's brown with blue lines. So how do we achieve this dual color thing? So this is where color manipulation comes in. So first we need to identify the shadow and the main color. So we know the darker color is the brown and the lighter color is the blue. So let's just pick the blue first. Okay, once you have the blue ready, we're gonna drop in the brown. So this time you drop it in at the darkest area, but you pull down the threshold. So now it's at 45, right? But my pencil can no longer go to the left edge. So I lift it up, undo, repeat the same thing in the same area, and continue going down. Okay, now it's no longer affecting anything. We want it to affect only the shadows. So go back up. Okay, so now we have a combination of both brown and blue, and this would be a good one to smudge because we have, this is like a dual color swatch that I've never taught before in this channel. I'm just going to use the rig brush to smudge a little bit. Okay, change back to the soft pull. Okay, erase it a bit. So using these two techniques of stamp stroke manipulation and also this dual color stamp, you can achieve quite a lot and work with majority of the painting already. But there is still like one last tip to learn. So let's say I want to do something really unique and funky. So I'm just going to use this stamp, make 2 duplicates, 2 examples, so 2 duplicates. Okay, I'm gonna position them first. This one I want it here. Usually if it's the same stamp, you don't put it like next to each other, but today, just for today, for the sake of the tutorial, find a good place to put this. Let's work on this one first. So this one is orange here. Make sure it's maximum threshold. Now I'm gonna duplicate this exact same swatch. Turn it off, pick the lighter orange on top and drop it in. So now we have 2 stamps of different colors and we can match it exactly as the gradient here. So the gradient is this shade. So I'm just going to turn on the lighter one and erase away the bottom. And then I can even make one last one to match the bottom shadow. This is called a gradient impasto. So I would erase this part. There we go. So now we have a gradient like yellow, red, dark red. Merge, okay? And then 3D smudge it to match. So now when I zoom out, I have something very dynamic that matches like the entire stroke itself. And I think this is better than the first attempt I did. Anyway, another sample which is here. Drop in this green first because it's overlaying that part of the green, right? So I actually drop it to the same location where I want it to be. So the green is there, so I drop it here. Make another duplicate. Now I want this brown. Okay. And another one. Maybe this one, this yellow. Okay. Okay. Now I can start erasing. Yep. Okay. There you go. It looks like this, but it looks too unreal, like digital. So we're gonna have to fix that. So let's merge it first. The way to fix it is to use the soft pull 3D smudge. Pull some streaks out into each other. I can also use a fan smudge so that it's more streaky. So you only want to do this for like really special areas where you want like really beautiful strokes, not every single one. When you're done, just use the soft pull to clean up the edges and to reshape it. Okay, there you go. So like even though they're right next to each other, the more you 3D smudge them, the more you can't tell like they are the same stroke because you're giving them subtle differences. Okay, so I think I covered all the techniques already, from stamp manipulation to color manipulation. So you can use these techniques to drop in the stamps for this artwork. And once you are done with your big stamps, you can work with the liners. So let's say these are your impastos. Your liners should be right on top. So for liners, right, you have three choices. You have the liner smooth thick paint, which looks like this. You can do dabs as well. This is like good for the bushes area like this. So you can just go in and put in all your grasses that way. Or you can use a streaky smooth thick paint. So this is a bit more pointed, so it's good for like areas like this where you can just quickly add like strokes like that as well. And these areas as well, like this. Okay, and then this part, of course, you would go point up when you paint. So there's also another brush you can use, which is the round thick paint D, which is the same one you did the stamp for with this. Turn the size down. It's actually quite a good liner brush. Yeah, so the liner looks like this. And if you do dots and dabs, it's rounded and it's cute. So you can use that to do like flowers or like really cute round dabs that is not sharp, like this. Yeah, so the last step is to work with the liners, but make sure you pick the color correctly first. Only the color picking takes time because every line it has different colors, so you kind of have to like pick the colors almost every line. So when you're done, you're gonna end up with something like this, with the overlay layer and then the impasto layers on top. Then you need to kind of go over and check. So like these areas, you see that the impasto is going in a different direction compared to the overlay layer. So you gotta kind of remove one or the other in order for them not to clash. So like this makes a lot more sense. So just go over all of them and check if you need to add more texture or lines or clean up. So this is also the part where you can just freely add layers on top and then use like normal brushes, regular brushes, and clean up details like these. So just sharpen the painting, tighten all the details and values, and check every single area if you have done everything. Because everything is like a suggestion, like this brush mark is a suggestion that there's a flower there. So you gotta kinda be very mindful of the shape as well in order for it to actually make sense. Like this makes sense, this does not make sense. So in order for it to make sense, maybe it needs to be shaped differently, right? So it needs to maybe be like this. So just go over the painting and see if you need to tweak anything. And then if it's too tight and not abstract enough, you can add like random strokes in order to give it that spontaneity. Then also you can use like the grunge brush or texture or crosshatch stamp brush to give more effects to the painting, usually on the last layer. Then zoom out and check if everything is okay, and when everything looks fine, then you can call it done and call it a day. 3 days to be exact. So thank you so much for keeping up with the complete tutorial and watching from beginning to the end. Now onwards, there are going to be like upcoming portrait tutorials, mostly the ones that you see in the Impasto brush pack PDF guide. I'm also going to come up with a subscription thingy where you can subscribe and then download projects for all the upcoming tutorials and color palettes as well. So make sure you follow my channel and subscribe for more content and tutorials. I'm going to try and create as much as I can for the next few months before I get busy. Okay, so thank you so much for watching and I'll see you again. Bye!